The Browns have brought in a lot of people, but we tell you why in 2023, the biggest breakout candidates are already on the roster. It's the Locked On Browns podcast coming up next.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd, the most, I'll claim it, most popular man in Cleveland right now doing content. He is everywhere. You can catch him anywhere. Garrett Bush at GBush91. We appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen. Of course, always available on all your podcast platform. Always available, always free. And folks, the response and the growth over at YouTube has been fantastic. Make sure you subscribe, notifications on. Anybody who reached out today, birthday-wise, I truly, truly appreciate it. Certainly not enough time to get back to everybody. So to myself and to Andrew Berry, only the great ones were born on March 30th. Happy birthday. But G. Bush, we got work to do. My man, what is on tap today?
On today's show, Maurice Hurst is destroying Twitter. We got some Twitter reactions by him running 21 miles an hour. We'll dig a little deeper into the Browns defensive line. Also, we will get into breakout players on defense. We talked about guys that are out here that we got some new additions. But Alex Wright is looking like a guy that's poised to make some really noise on the defensive line and solidify himself in this league. But first, let's talk about Donovan Peoples-Jones, Jeff. When you talk about offensive players and guys that are going to break out, Donovan Peoples-Jones, in my opinion, is at the top of the list. He had a year last year in which, he pretty much guaranteed himself some extra capital, some extra dollars and incentives. And this is a huge year for him coming up here, Jeff, in terms of this being a year, whether or not he's going to get paid or not. And that's always a huge thing, especially for a guy when you look at Donovan Peoples-Jones, who actually is an individual who, he comes out as a 6th round pick, 187 overall. And when you're a guy that's coming out of the 6th round, you only got you got the 4 years. You don't get the 5th year extension, and you need to actually, do some stuff in order to get it. You look at his grades here. I believe Donovan Peoples-Jones every single year has gotten better. Even though his PFF grade was at 64.9 last year, you got to take into consideration who was throwing him the football. Jacoby Brissett was the quarterback at the time. I think he's going to be a much better target, and he showed a lot of things working with Deshaun Watson. Let me ask you this question, Jeff. When you look at Donovan Peoples-Jones, and they brought in 2 other receivers, and Marquise Goodwin, and Elijah Moore, which we both are very high on because of their speed and versatility, and especially Elijah Moore coming out of Ole Miss. Is Donovan Peoples-Jones solidified as the number 2 receiver, or do you think Elijah Moore could potentially take some touches away from him and to lessen his ability to put up big numbers?
I think the first thing you think with Donovan, and as far as to your question is, I think we're talking about a scenario where it's 2A and 2B, where both of these guys, and it could be as soon as 2024, become 1A and 1B. Amari Cooper here is now. But what you love that the Browns have done is they try to have something in place ahead of time. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, You don't sell your house and then go look for somewhere else to live. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hustling backwards. It's hustling sideways. It's
you mess around and be with your in-laws. You do not want to be with your in-laws for the whole summer.
Whole summer. You might end up there a year the way the market is now. But you look for, and for Donovan Peoples-Jones, when he was drafted in the 6th round, he was a guy with great potential, great athletic ability. It didn't pan out at Michigan the way he wanted to. The Browns at the time had Jarvis Landry. They had Odell Beckham Jr. They had Rashard Higgins. They had Kadero Hodge. Where was the world for this guy with 5-star athletic potential to ever get an opportunity? Then you get to the Cincinnati Bengal game, and Odell goes down. Donovan Peoples-Jones kind of a coming out party. All of a sudden, we see Jarvis Landry ain't necessarily what it was, what he was. Rashard Higgins, it was always the craziest and weirdest relationship. He was good with Baker Mayfield, but it didn't seem like he and the coaching staff got along.
He was always open, couldn't get the ride. You're like, what's wrong with Hollywood? He ain't playing this week.
Right. And there were times even in that 2020 season where he wasn't dressing. He wasn't even dressing early in the season, Rashard Higgins. But Donovan Peoples-Jones, and this is, what you see about this kid. Now, obviously, as strong as an athlete as he was a great, great young man in the classroom. And this is a guy that's taking the opportunity. I honestly think, Jay, we can switch it back to you here. You could see a possibility here where Donovan Peoples-Jones, maybe reception numbers drop this year. Because, look, you got Elijah Moore. You're going to have Marquise Goodwin. So, yes, but I still think yardage-wise, we're talking about a guy that's going to click around 9 bills. I think the TDs will go up because he did not actually get a lot of TDs last year. But the other thing is the more great players that you play with, it should be a little easier for you to succeed. You know what I'm saying? Steve Kerr in the NBA wasn't that great. But when you play on the 3-peat Bulls, you get a lot of easy alley-oops. And I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to get a lot of easy alley-oops here.
And you know what it gets me. This is why I kind of like, having this material to look at. By position, if you look at it, Jeff, at the bottom, kind of in the middle of your screen, it talks about his snaps. Now, people would think that he is strictly a wide receiver or X or a guy that's flankered out wide. He's 315 snaps in the slot. So Donovan Peoples-Jones has a little bit of versatility here. And I think the thing that we might see is Kevin Stefanski could play with that a little bit because people believe that Elijah Moore is just a slot receiver. He's not. I think there's some.
He's a guy with a 50-50 split as well. Yep.
I think there's some versatility in formation alignment that they can get guys. Say, for instance, if there was a smaller nickel guy, I could see. Donovan Peoples-Jones being in the slot, picking on a smaller guy and using his big body to kind of, box people out, especially near the goal line. So, he shows some versatility. I really think the Browns wide receiver core is rounding out nicely because everybody fits a certain description, Jeff.
And the thing I like about it is you can see this room going forward and kind of get a vision for it going forward. And to your point of Donovan Peoples-Jones and the slot receiver activity, one of his touchdowns this year was the Baltimore game a week before Christmas, and he was in the backfield. And that was with Deshaun Watson. And that's more of, let's try to get the best playmakers on the field with our quarterback. And Donovan Peoples-Jones ran a little out route, knew the linebacker would be right up on him, and I'm pretty sure it was Roquan Smith. Little shake and a shimmy with the hips, and 6. Donovan's got, and the one thing Donovan brings is just an overall physical presence at the wide receiver. Look, Donovan Peoples-Jones is the kind of guy that shows up at the pool and all the dads put the shirts back on. Donovan Peoples-Jones is built like that's type of just the way he's embarrassing.
He's embarrassing people. Like, I'm coming. Like, come on, don't come out here with your shirt off. And I didn't know he was only 24. For some reason, he was only a 3-year guy coming out. Yep, that's crazy.
Yep, and and part of the reason he left early was it just wasn't working for him at Michigan. So at that point, man, go get yours and get on out. And and for him, it's the best thing he ever could have done because the best football of his entire life has been done to this point in the NFL. And we don't say that a lot about guys who ever get drafted. But we're going to shift it up here. We are starting to get into defensive breakout player of the year, Jeff Lloyd, Garrett Bush, your latest Locked On Browns. Guys, built March Madness. The bracket is here. We know you have a favorite bar or puff, and now's your time to make it count. Go to builtmarchmadness.com to vote for your favorite. You guys know me. I'll be voting for the cookie and cream bar. Some of you guys like a little bit more extreme, but I'm more than okay with this. But if you're a Browns fan and you want the Browns to win, then you'll be voting for that bar to support your team. Support your bar or puff as well. And when you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you will be entered into a drawing for 50 lucky Locked On listeners, and they can win a free box of Built. Even better, one Locked On fan will win a 12-month subscription to Built to have Built's best bars of puffs delivered monthly straight to the front door. You got to try a Built. Built, the best protein bar ever. Seriously. They are so amazing, you won't think that they are good for you. What makes Built bars and puffs so good? Well, for starters, they are all low in protein, high in sugar, and covered in 100% real chocolate. Real chocolate. That's right. So run to BuiltMarchMadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff and pick up a box while you're there. You can vote every day in March. So hop on in and support your pick.
Thank you for making the Locked On Browns your first listen of each and every day. You know, offense puts the points on the board, but you know what the old cliche is? Defense wins championships. And I'll tell you right now, when it comes to the breakout players in 2023, Alex Wright is a guy that's due up. He's the next guy up. And I thought he acclimated himself the best out of any of the rookies to me. When I look at Isaiah Thomas, he had a little more production. When I look at maybe a guy like Perion Winfrey, he flashed a little more. But when you look at the consistency, Jeff, I really thought that you look at Alex Wright, he looked the part. He was a guy that, you know, he's very fundamentally sound. And when you look at his PFF grades, something stands out. You know, obviously the grade for him is not going to be where it is. But once again, we talk about Joe Woods not being the defensive coordinator in the morning. There's a reason why he's not the defensive coordinator anymore. There's a reason why Jim Schwartz is here. You take a look at what Alex Wright can do. Has the frame, 22 years of age, 6'5", 267. I think he showed some ability for as far as the pass rush goes. You know, when you look at some of these PFF grades, I'm a little more lenient on defensive linemen, especially interior guys and edge rushers, because what you're not equipped for is to understand how fast and physical the offensive linemen are in the league. So if you're looking at a defensive end coming out of college, Jeff, it's hard sometimes to project and say, all right, well, that guy's going to come in day one, week one, and be a guy, because you're already behind as far as the eight ballers in terms of physical strength, knowing and understanding the scheme and what's going on up front, and you just trying to figure out the speed of the game. So I think defensive linemen are the most difficult one. And tight end, believe it or not, because tight ends, they ask you to block and catch the ball. Usually in the NCAA and the college football, they only tell you to do one. But Jeff, I like Alex Wright, and I think that he's a guy that can really take a big step just by his fundamentals and just by the fact that I think he has a good head on his shoulders. What's something that you see that you made us choose Alex Wright as a guy defensively to make that big step in 2023?
Well, you know, first thing, and part of this is, and we always did a segment every year, and we used to do it, you know, we would do a show a day or two after the draft, and it would be like, don't forget about the other guys, you know, we call it don't sleep on the sophomores. Once a new guy gets to town, everybody wants to kind of forget about some of the guys that have already been there. Alex Wright last year ended up playing probably more than he had to. And a lot of that was due to the Jadeveon Clowney, whatever you want to call that scenario. But we all remember Miles, obviously, you know, missed some time. So Alex Wright, and, you know, to your point, and I think this was a great point by you, is for making the jump from the NFL, you got to, Alex Wright played at UAB. Yeah. It's not like he played in the SEC. Yeah. And it was like, you know what? The guys I face every single Saturday, I'm going to see these dudes in post-game handshakes. I'll see him in training camp. That doesn't happen when you play at UAB.
Speaking of, didn't UAB lose their team? Didn't they lose their whole program?
At one point.
At one point. They didn't even have a team.
Absolutely. But, you know, for a guy like him, you know, he didn't face these guys week in, week out like SEC guys do. And I think the thing that came away with most impressed with Alex Wright was the strong point was run defense. You know, the pass rush is the part where you can say, you know what? We think that'll come. It's kind of hard to say, oh, will he get the stones? You know, will he get tough enough? Will he be smart enough to stay disciplined enough that he doesn't get driven out of the play by grown-ass men like Joe Bitonio and Wyatt Teller who are feeding their families? So for Alex Wright, a guy who's pressing him more playing time, and if you guys remember, I said I thought there would have been a process where maybe Isaiah Thomas played more than Alex Wright, just because he was more comfortable with the level of competition, had more time on the field. But I think Alex Wright, and when he comes in this year and it's a less stressful situation, he's going to be dealing with a guy in Okoronkwo who already seems like a million time better locker room, compatriot, teammate than Jadeveon.
And let's drill down on that a little bit, though. I think that's a very good point. And this is no knock against Myles Garrett, but Myles Garrett is a guy who is in the middle of what he's trying to see as a Hall of Fame career, trying to rack numbers up. He's just trying to get to the quarterback. And you got to ask yourself, what is that defensive line room like when you got young guys in there and Jadeveon Clowney saying, well, unless I'm getting a favorable matchup, I'm not about to go out there on 2 downs. That can't look that. What does that look like to young guys like Perrion Winfrey? And then they tell Perrion Winfrey he has to learn to be a pro.
You got to act correct. No. You got to act correct.
You got to act like you need to learn how to be a pro, Jadeveon. Like, what are you doing? So I think this is going to be that's a really big point. I think there's going to be a much better camaraderie. There's going to be a much better just understanding what's responsible, what you guys are supposed to be doing. And I think, to be honest with you, and this is just truthful, and I heard this directly from people in Myles Garrett's camp. The first time that they reached out to Clowney and said, hey, you're going to come back, he never returned any of his phone calls. When those guys went out there for the defensive groups, right, he wasn't there. He didn't show up for that. And he never came to any of the functions that the defensive lineman had as a group. So that just goes to show you what kind of stuff was going on, not to mention with the, Joe Woods and the MAs. I can see why the communication went there, because guess what? They weren't practicing what they was preaching.
And here's also another thing, and basically to piggyback off of that is, if you're Alex Wright and you're Isaiah Thomas, who can you speak to more understanding? Look, Jadeveon Clowney is a number 1 pick, kept getting handed money. And look, it's not like Jadeveon didn't produce.
Right.
But, the Browns got on this hook where he had a really good year in 21. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden they paid more in 2022. And then it was, you now have the real Jadeveon Clowney that other teams have dealt with. But Ogbonnia Okoronkwo, a former 5th-round pick, who now gets this opportunity of getting a legit opportunity, legit contract. If you're Alex Wright or you're Isaiah Thomas, is it easier to talk to Myles Garrett, or is it easier to talk to Ogbonnia Okoronkwo? Because he's been there and he's walking the walk that you guys are walking.
He was just there a year ago.
And you can't. And look, anybody could talk to Myles Garrett and say, hey, show me how you do this. Okay. But he's 6'5", 270, a 40-inch vert, one of the greatest. And it's like, it's great to pick his brain. But if you don't have what he has,
don't matter.
It's like, hey, go build this shed, but I'm not going to give you any tools. Myles Garrett has all the tools. So for a guy like, Alex Wright, a guy like Isaiah Thomas, Okoronkwo becomes more relatable. And you can understand hey, these are the struggles, these are the bounds I had to take to get where I am. And so, no, you don't have to go nuts. Pay your dues. Do what's asked of you. 110% every time you're out there. It's the way it works when you're a guy who was drafted in the mid-rounds and you want to have a multi-year, a multi-contract career. This one guy kind of took a little bit of a blaze here on the internet today, and we're going to go to it because you want to talk about a hard luck story. There is this guy, Maurice Hurst. Everything has been hard luck. We're going to get to that segment 3. Garrett Bush, Jeff Lloyd. We close it out the week here. Another great week here on Locked On Browns. Thank you all for being along for the ride. We are entering the final days of the NBA season. MLB just opening up. The Mets 1-0. Guardians getting ready to start it all off. So now would be the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and three-pointers drained. Plus, FanDuel even allows you to combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. Look, I see you Guardians fans. You guys are all geeked up. You can bet on who gets a save. You can bet on your starting pitching. You can bet on Stephen Kwan, over-unders on hits, and my boy Andre Jimenez. There's so many things you can do. If you're going to devote the 2.5 hours to the game, it costs you $5-10, a chance maybe to get a couple hundred back in return. Why not? Check it out. So don't miss the best chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Thanks for making Locked On Browns your first listen of each and every day. Follow me at GBush91 and follow at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd on Twitter. Listen, Maurice Hurst is on full display. He just went viral, and he's continually going viral with what he's doing. And, Jeff, we're going to dig a little deeper into the Browns free agency and take a look at the spotlight of the defensive line and what some of the new guys bring to the table. And Maurice Hurst is a guy who is a defensive lineman, and you would expect guys like corners, safeties, receivers, maybe some of those guys to actually be running very fast and to be moving like this. But wait till we show you guys this, man. Come on, Mo. We got to bring that back. We got to bring that back. So let me set this up. So this is one of those machines, right, where they track how fast you're running, like miles per hour. And, you know, these guys get on there and they want to show how fast you can burst for maybe 10 to 15 seconds. So Maurice Hurst is on there with his trainer. And mind you, this man is 290 pounds. And can you imagine this man coming after you as a quarterback? This just goes to show you the upgraded talent and the upgraded athleticism that the Browns have up front. Thank you, AB, for getting us one of these guys.
And here we go. Come on, Mo. Open up.
And he
there it is. Easy. Come on. Easy. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good.
And the one thing you're not emphasizing here, G, is there's a little bit of an incline there. I mean, that ain't just flat.
Listen, I mean, no, bring that back. I need to see this again because it makes me feel like I'm almost closer to my playing days. Now, look.
Oh, yeah. Definitely feels you like you're in your playing days.
This man is on a little bit of incline, and he running easy.
And here we go.
Look,
come on, Mo.
Running
Open
easy.
up.
Look at that form.
There it is. Come on. 5, 4, 3.
You
2,
realize that's
1.
probably about stride-wise. That's probably about 7. It's probably about a 70-yard run at 21 miles an hour. And the thing is, you got to keep up, or guess what? Your ass falls off and you get thrown off the dam.
You're out of here.
And you get some really, really bad burns. You're cut up. You go to the emergency room, getting some Bactine to cover you up. But the thing with Maurice Hurst, and this is the most difficult thing, is you want to talk about a guy that has literally gotten nothing but bad luck. You know, when he was coming out of Michigan, he was considered a top 20 prospect, slam dunk, round 1 prospect. You know, then he goes to the combine, little question, you know, about his heart. And they stop you right there. That's it. We're not going to let you go any further. We're going to let you make where you're going to get every single test you can. And that's where the NFL is good about it, because God forbid, we don't want anything to happen to these kids, obviously. Then it turns out he's okay. And, you know, it seems other doctors have cleared him, but yet he still gets drafted in the 5th round, which made it a really, and now keep in mind, this is the Baker Mayfield draft. His first career sack, and I thought I brought this up before, Baker Mayfield's first career start in Oakland. They lost to the Raiders. Maurice Hurst gets a start that day. But it's been bad luck. Same thing, injuries, time missed. And, you know, and again, I'll equate it to Malik McDowell 2 years ago. Granted, Malik McDowell's situation was a lot different than Maurice Hurst. But here is a guy who's always had the athleticism, always had the potential, always was a good player. But the NFL, your greatest ability is your availability. And if you're not around, we forget about you. And Browns don't do this. Andrew Berry.
The crazy thing about it, Jeff, is when he has been healthy, he's been productive. I mean, look, 2018 to have a 70. So we just talked about how difficult it is for an interior lineman or edge lineman in Alex Wright. His grade was like a 39. This guy was a 71.4 his rookie year. He jumped up in snaps at 522. And so he peaks at 73 that year. And in 2020, it was a short season because of injuries, but a 77.9 for a guy is something that's nothing to be, sneezed at, especially when you coming into this league as a defensive tackle.
You're paying him less than $1 million, G. I mean, this is, and obviously for all of us, it's really hard to equate saying that this is a lottery ticket. But when Mega Millions is north of $600 million, when Powerball is north of $600 million, you all go drop $2, right? Well,
right.
To the NFL and the salary cap and billionaires spending $1 million or so on a guy with this type of potential, this type of proven track record when available, this is the equivalent of all of us going to drop $2 on a Mega Millions ticket, or he literally could be your starting defensive tackle next to Dalvin Tomlinson.
Yep.
You can't count on it. And obviously the way you're paying him, you're not counting on it. But when the dust settles at the end of this, and we could be sitting here come week 3, week 4 and saying, good God, did this tiny move, which cost you no money, turn out to be almost as important as Dalvin Tomlinson, almost as important as Juan Thornhill? This is the potential of this move. And I'm not saying he's going to go out there and we're going to say, oh my God, Aaron Donald's here in Cleveland. But you got to remember what we've grown accustomed to the last couple of years of defensive tackle play.
If you go
a 73, he would have smoked every dude on that roster last year by 40 points.
If you would just watch the Atlanta tape, go back, watch the Chargers tape, go back and watch where they can't get off the field. Like now you're throwing bodies at, and this is what I love about veterans. Sometimes, you have to go with a youth movement, but sometimes when you go with a youth movement, you have no room for error. And when you at least got veterans, a veteran defensive tackle like this guy, listen, you gonna run. He ain't gonna let you run no 14 straight plays like Atlanta did. He gonna say, now listen, and we all see it. Like we hear the announcer say, oh, big number 97 was in the backfield. He had enough of seeing that same play 3 or 4 times. You can't run that on no grown man 3-4 times. By the third time, it's just an automatic blitz like you playing Tecmo Bowl, Jeff. Like you pick the same play and it's an all-out jail blitz. Like that ain't happening. So I think the cool thing about it is they've thrown a lot of bodies at the position. Once again, we're not hyping this dude up. Like, we're not trying to be a homers. I know we do the Locked On Browns podcast. We're not going to sit here and tell you that this guy is the next coming of Warren Sapp. But what we will say is it looks a lot better when you got a guy like a guy like Hill. And if Togi, I give you something, cool. If Perion Winfrey want to show up, cool.
There's the one. Because if Perion Winfrey, and we can do this for another day, but if Jim Schwartz cannot get that motor running in Perion Winfrey ain't gonna be in Cleveland anymore. This is the perfect match because Perion is wired like that. Jim Schwartz, the way he motivates interior defensive line play, it could be the guy that takes a major leap here. But when you got a guy like Maurice Hurst, who's got all the potential in the world and has shown it the only issue has been bad luck and health.
That's it.
That's the only issue for a guy like Maurice Hurst. And, makes it a real easy guy to root for, even if he's from the team up north. He is Garrett Bush, part of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Of course, the Barbershop 92.3 Fan, Saturdays on 92.3 Fan, on-air personalities, everybody knows. Make sure you're following at GBush91, myself, Jeff Lloyd, at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd. For this week, it's been, another great week here. We appreciate everybody. The growth is amazing. We sat down with the guys from Locked On. If you notice anything different the last 2 days, it's just been such a great return from all you guys. They're just asking us to try to, tighten things up here and give you guys the most solid products we can day in, day out. And we're going to continue to do that. For Monday, right now, we know we have Mock Draft Monday. Of course, any new Browns news drops, that'll be part of Monday's episode as well. Something major happens, we'll find a way to get it to you guys, as quick as we possibly can. We got no rules. If we got to go on a Saturday, we'll find a way to go on a Saturday. That's all. Sunday, who knows? We'll be there as well. So you have that. Make sure you're checking out Locked On NFL Scouting, Joe Marino, Kyle Krabs. These guys take you through every facet of an NFL franchise, whether it's, day-to-day, in-season, draft, free agency, salary cap. These guys do a fantastic job. Make sure you check that out. Of course, after Locked On Browns is your first listen, available on all podcast platforms, always free. YouTube, subscribe. Make sure you have your notifications on, throw likes on the episodes. And when your friends ain't looking, grab the phone, open up YouTube. And if they ain't subscribed to Locked On Browns, be a good friend and subscribe them to Locked On Browns. All that being said, this has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns.